Hey, what's up guys? Still Seated Dash Game here. Just wanted to do a quick little review today of my 2016 Mazda 3 iSport. Apologize in advance, the car is not washed inside or out because the weather's been kind of crappy for washing the outside. And I dirtied up the car too recently on the inside, and I'm sick of pushing this video back. So sorry in advance for that, but it's not too bad. So, just to give you some basic info, this car has just over 18,000 miles on it. Basically, it is a base model. The only spec that I have added onto this car is that it has Bluetooth. It's powered by a 2-liter inline-4, putting out 155 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 150 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 RPM. It's a 6-speed auto, front-wheel drive, 5 seats. Obviously, it is not the 5-door, it is the 4-door with a trunk. Curb weight is just shy of 2,900 pounds, so it is a pretty light car, in my opinion, especially for how sturdy it feels, which I'll get into it later. It's rated to get 30 miles a gallon city, 41 highway. I average typically 28 to 37, but I've gotten as high as 49 on a consistently long drive. So, it varies, and it depends on how I drive it. Only other real thing I'm going to get into before I start really getting into just my personal review of the car. I don't plan to regurgitate specs at you guys. You guys can look that stuff up. I'm here to give you my experience on it. Basically, I just want to touch on the routine maintenance. I'm not really going to pop the hood or anything, just because you can find all those kinds of pictures. That's not the stuff that you're here for. But as far as routine maintenance, it has a timing chain, so less maintenance required than my Pilot, which has a timing belt. It does not need regular transmission fluid service. If you're servicing the transmission fluid, it's because you're cracking open the transmission. So, you don't need to touch that unless there's a reason to touch it. Electronic power steering, so no fluid to deal with. You get your typical sparks, coils, coolant, oil changes, tires, brakes, all that stuff. But all in all, it is a pretty cheap vehicle to maintain. I actually have not had to do anything to this yet. I'm still on the tires that came with, and they're still with good tread. I'm still on the same brakes. And I've done I've done one oil change. I've been doing them every 7,500 with full synthetic 0W20 oil. I've been going personally with Pennzoil, but to each their own. Go with whatever. Sometimes I go with whatever there's a deal on. But that pretty much sums up just the general overview of the car, and now I'm going to start getting into the nitty-gritty. Alright, so we're going to stick with the exterior of this car. One thing I love about Mazda is they actually keep their cars pretty simplistically designed. They're not over-designed, and they're not under-designed. This car doesn't feel like it's 7 years old because it doesn't look that much different from the new ones, but it doesn't feel dated either. So you can't really go wrong with that. That styling it's in for a lot of people right now. This color is liquid silver metallic. Wasn't big on buying silver. Once I saw it in person, absolutely changed my mind. This color is beautiful. Could look anything from a silver to a gray to almost a blue, depending on the light. Not much else to touch on there. I have steel wheels, but it's comes with 16 by 6.5 wheels. Bolt pattern 5 by 114.3, so a lot of aftermarket support for that size wheel. Pretty much everyone I see selling wheels for their cars, I swear, has that same bolt pattern. So, it did come with the hubcaps. You can actually see I do have a little bit fading. Sorry, I got a text in the middle of that. The fading is just because this was an Arizona car that sat for a long time because I bought it with 4,200 miles on it. So there is some fading all around where the sun was clearly beating on it. You can see, for example, right here, just a little bit of, it's normal. The passenger headlight, the tops of the headlights are a little faded, but that's nothing I can't fix when I have some time. But it did come with hubcaps. I removed them because I am a subscriber to the belief that every vehicle is better with steel wheels. And the moment I saw it had hubcaps is the moment I took them off. I almost prefer them to other wheels, if I'm going to be honest with you. I meant to touch on the condition. I already mostly have. The only things that it had when I purchased it, besides this little ding here that was noted, it had a little scratch, a couple little scratches up here, which were noted. And the one thing that wasn't noted, but I don't even think the video is going to pick it up, in the right light, there are a bunch of little teeny tiny dents, like it was through a minor hailstorm. You can't feel them, you can't see them unless you're looking for them. I happened to just notice it one day while I was staring at the car. But no big deal to me. They're also only on the roof, not on the rest of the car, so I'm not quite sure what the story is on that. As far as the outside, the panel gaps are overall really good. Nothing feels cheaply made, nothing feels cheaply designed. In my opinion, the worst panel gap is right here, and it doesn't even look bad. You can see the headlights even tapered a bit to sort of account for it. Everything else, it just looks cleanly built. It feels cohesive. The doors adequately feel heavy. I mean, they feel heavy, they sound heavy, you feel safe behind this, like inside of this car. You just feel like everything is properly built on the outside. The ride height is pretty low. Sorry, I didn't mean to cover the camera. I got about 6 inches of clearance, and that's factory ride height, I believe. I almost feel like the car is a bit lower, but I have no real quantifiable way to prove that because it seems like it's all OEM. But when I park this next to other ones, it just feels like theirs sit higher. It could be the springs, but I was told the springs look new, so I don't know. In terms of fuel type, I don't know why I'm going into this now. It takes 87, thankfully. It's an economy car that doesn't take premium, unlike certain ones, Volkswagen, Golfs in particular. The only exterior complaints I have is that it's pretty easy to scrape the front splitter with how low this car is. If I go fast enough, like more than 5 miles an hour, actually less than that, I scrape coming up this driveway. When I have my messed up knee, it can be very hard to get into this thing with the ride height it's at. It's actually easier to get out of it than it is to get into it. And you can't see it now because I have a Euro plate, but there were pre-drilled holes for the front plate that I wasn't a fan of. I would have liked to have no plate, but because the holes are there, I may as well put something there. I just feel like that is a better use of my time. Plus, I like having a little bit of something that stands out on my car. So yeah, that pretty much covers the outside of the car. Let's move inside. Again, sorry, the interior is a little dirty. I haven't really had time to vacuum up, and I've been out in the mud a little bit, clearly. But all in all, I keep it in pretty good shape. So it's very spacious, especially in the front seat. I can sit as far back as I want in this thing, and it will feel comfortable. It sat with me in the vehicle, a 6'3" passenger behind me in this seat, and it sat a 6'6" passenger in the front with the seat about where it's at now. So, you know, I wouldn't fit full 5 grown adults in this vehicle, but you could easily fit 4. That middle one is definitely meant for a child. There's no other way. As far as trunk space goes, while we're on the concept of space here, it's not really a great indicator because I have a bunch of stuff back here. It's 12.4 cubic feet with the seats set. So obviously if I put the back seats down, which I will get into in a moment, I can have a very good bit more space. All in all, I mean, like, I don't have a ton of room because I keep a lot of stuff back here, but hey, you do what you got to do with your job, and with me being paranoid driving older cars, I always keep oil and all that stuff around. While I'm at the trunk, I may as well get to this now. So if I want extra space to get the back seat down, it is a little bit tedious. I have to move the front seats up so that these guys have enough room to swing down. I pull this lever here, fold the seat down while getting the seat belts out of the way, the middle one being the big pain one. And then boom, I have a lot of extra space. It has been nice. I've used it on numerous occasions now. It's more often I have the car full than I have it with stuff than I have it full with people. Yeah, that pretty much covers the, actually that covers the trunk entirely, so let's close her up. But let's move on to the rest of the interior. Alright, so now that we're in here, obviously I have plenty of space. Don't mind the phone. I have a script for this because I had so many things I wanted to touch on. I did not want to forget. Overall, build quality is very sturdy, aside from there's some things that feel a little bit on the cheaper side, like this glove box. It just feels a little cheap. The whole thing, you can see it rocks when I move this. And the glove box, the door feels a little cheap, but it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, and it doesn't feel like I could easily break it, so that's not too bad. As far as storage space in here, we have the center console. We have, in each of the front doors, this little cubby. I have SD cards for my camera in here. Little cup holders there. You know, we got one on each door. In the back, there's not really much storage at all. But I have the glove box, this up here, and then this little section here, which I'll get to. As far as the placement of everything just feels natural in this car. Big, meaty claws of turnstiles. You know, I have a lot of blanks because, again, this is a base model. But, you know, having the basic controls for cruise on one side, for music on the other, my Bluetooth underneath. Easy controls for mirror, easy controls for locks and windows. Everything's just right where I want it to be. Don't mind this. This is for the dash cam. Levers down here for, there's a trunk button. And then down lower is the fuel door and the hood latch. The start button, you know, right where I'd expect it to be. The shifter, I love it. It's a regular fucking shifter. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just exactly what I expect out of this car. Same with the e-brake, which I'll get to the e-brake and the shifter a little bit more in terms of the mechanics of it as we go. The other things in terms of interior is, sorry, I went over the putting the rear seats down. Climate control, blows very hot, blows very cold. Windows fog up a little bit easy on here, but once the car's warmed up, I have no issue. You know, behaves like everything else. And my favorite thing is I mostly still have tactile buttons. Not everything's on a screen, and the screen is not a touch screen, with the exception of one little corner for the home button, which I kind of get, but also there's this. And this is my favorite part of the layout of this car, is that this will control the entire display. I'll get to that in a minute when I have the car on. A couple tactile buttons for music, navigation, the home. This just back. This can go like this as a joystick. It can rotate, and you push it. So pretty much does everything, and volume has its own separate control with a favorites button I've actually never used, now that I think about that. In terms of power, we have one cigarette lighter here. That's it, which actually leads to one of my complaints. I have these guys down here. I have two USB ports, and I have an SD port, as well as an aux port. The aux port I would use if I didn't have Bluetooth, so I have no qualms about that. The SD card, I could see it being useful. I don't know that I'll ever have a use for it. And the USB ports, in my opinion, are useless in this car, because they're only good for connecting for data purposes. They won't charge my phone. Like, they'll... My old phone would run off it would run off power, but it basically wouldn't charge up the battery. My new phone, if I'm doing anything like GPS, it actually still drains battery while plugged in. So I had to grab something to allow me to, because I don't have my dash cam hardwired yet, to allow me to have that and my phone charger plugged in. So that's when I grabbed this guy with the two USB ports. No, I won't leave a link in the description. I'll eventually do a review on it, because I do have some positives and negatives, and it all runs into the one source of power here. There's no source of power like that in the trunk. There's none for the back seat. There's actually no climate control in the back seat directly. They get all the climate control from the front. This car's pretty bare bones, but that's not a complaint for me, because I like that. You know, the mirror has nothing special. It's literally just a mirror. No lights in the front of this. I don't even think there are lights in the front of this one. My Pilot even had lights in this. You know, it has a little thing to flip out for if you need more sunlight, or more sunlight blocked, rather. Sorry, today's my day off, and I'm in brain off mode, so don't mind me. Lights, individual buttons, as well as the switch for on, off, and on, off with the doors. You know, you have shit handles. Well, that light is controlled by the front. Nothing too fancy there. That pretty much covers the interior. My only other complaints is that, you know, the stuff feels a little bit cheap. The dials, these ones in particular, feel a little bit cheap, but they still feel sturdy. They feel like they're made out of cheap plastic, but they're made well. So I don't really have any true complaints, but that's just the thing I've noticed. Putting down the back seats, obviously, is a process. As I went through, it can get kind of annoying. Having only one power location really sucks, but I can make it work, obviously. This has been a godsend for me. It's easy. Sorry. Oh, another little thing in here. It is so easy to accidentally knock this tray off of the track. It's unreal. That's just another little thing that's not really a knock to anybody. It's just easy to knock it over. When the car is powered on, it takes a long time for the climate control to heat up. But in the summer, it does not take long for it to get cold, which, you know, makes sense when the heater core needs to warm up. And with the AC, you're pumping Freon. It's just going to get cold. But that's just, you know. The front seats are shift manually. This one actually has extra levers back here to adjust height and angle. And they're a little bit finicky. But it's not a big deal. The other thing I worry about is, especially when I was having issues with my knee, was accidentally popping the trunk. I never actually had it happen, so I'm not chalking that up as a major issue. But that is something that I've been concerned about. Oh shit, am I going to hit that? Especially if I have the trunk or the back seat full and I can't see the trunk. But that pretty much covers the basics of the interior. So now I'm going to power the car on, and we're going to look at the display and the functionality of driving the vehicle. All right. Now that we're powered on, I'm just going to go a bit into the display. It's simple, but really intuitive. You get all your music controls when I'm here. If I hit the music button, it would bring me back here. Let's go home. So I'm going to, I guess, kind of do this out of order. There's a lot you can customize in terms of the settings, in terms of the display, all that fun stuff. Audio settings. It will not let you edit most of these while you're driving. If you're in the music menu, you can edit some audio settings while driving, but that's it. It lets you control everything with the clock and GPS, all that stuff. You can control when the vehicle doors relock. You can control your turn signals if they blink once, or if they have the 3 flash when you push it down, as well as the volume on them. And lighting in the vehicle, Bluetooth devices, just regular system stuff. You know, it is pretty straightforward. Navigation, I don't have it. So for me, it will show a compass, which, okay. And there is a tactile button to bring me to navigation. And if I hit that little back button, you'll see it'll bring me just back a page, in this case, back to the menu. Communication, I don't really use this too much, but I answer phone calls while I'm driving through the car sometimes. That's the only real use I have. I haven't really messed with this, with these settings that much. Music, obviously, and you have all these different sources. There's some built-in apps like Pandora and Stitcher. There's the USB slots, AM, FM. I would have aux, satellite. That's where this would all be. I'm going to see if this wants to behave. There we go. See? It did behave today. If you hit that little home button, it brought me back home. That's the only part of the screen that is touchscreen. You'll see nothing else here is. And then over in applications, you have a traffic map, which is 2023. This isn't very helpful to me, but I can see that being neat sometimes and being useful. Fuel economy, right now it's obviously going to be 0 because I'm doing nothing, but it updates every minute so semi-real time, and I don't know, it's cool to track sometimes. Maintenance, I just have that for 31 months because I'm going by mileage, so I don't care about the time. But I have when I'm scheduled for all these different things. You can set your own reminders, and you could reset them and cancel them from here. Warning lights, I have none, obviously. But even when I'm low on washer fluid, I will get a warning here. So that's pretty cool. It pretty much covers... that pretty much covers all of this. And with the lights on, if I turn this and I dim that, it dims this as well. Which is both good and bad. I'll get to that in a minute. So, let's just move on to the gauges and the display. So this layout, I think, is pretty intuitive. Revs, speed, fuel, temp. If I have cruise control, there's the set. I don't really use it too much, personally. Obviously, the usual trips, And mileage, which, yeah, as you can see, 18.5, pretty low. Back to the stalks for a moment. Pretty simple and sweet. You know, obviously it has the 3 blink, like I mentioned. Running lights, which are already on when the car's in drive anyway. And headlights. Wipers, they are not automatic, but we have all the different speeds. We have mist. Of course, that's just going to move crap all over my window. Wash fluid, which one other thing I love is that it comes out from under the hood. That's just a little thing. I don't like seeing the little nozzles, the hood nipples, as I call them. And the different speeds, obviously. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Volume info, which here will show me average fuel economy, current, average speed, and range. I usually have it on range, but I do occasionally look when I'm curious. Control the volume for the music from here, as well as the knob down here, so redundancy. Skip music, especially, which I play Spotify all the time, so I'm using that button constantly. Call and decline phone, Bluetooth voice commands, which I've never used. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The only thing I don't like, so that blue icon obviously means that I'm not up to vehicle temp, like operating temp yet. I don't like that there's no temp gauge. Maybe I'm old school. I like having a temp gauge, but I've had much bigger complaints about vehicles than that, so I can't really say that that's that bad. So that being said, I will now get into the talk of driving the vehicle. So I'm not going to actually drive this because I do have a couple little things to do before I leave, but it starts up completely keyless. Here's my little fob. I'll get to that in a minute. Backup camera that I can do in part, or while I'm not moving. Decent enough resolution to see what I'm doing. It's not very interactive. Those lines just kind of stay there. There's no beeping. There's no sensors. Nothing like that. Whenever it rains, it can be really, really tricky to see out of that thing. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Good wide angle. Visibility overall. This car, I have very good visibility. I don't really have issues with blind spots. If you know how to adjust your mirrors, you really don't have that big issue unless the car is designed poorly for that. Comfort, obviously I've touched on. It is great even on long trips. I don't get tired or fatigued sitting in this car. The pedal feel. The brake pedal is nice, big, and sturdy. The gas pedal is one of this kind, which I won't do it till the car's off. But if I push it down, you know, obviously it goes, but it gives that little extra click so you know when you're actually flooring it, per se. That's just a nifty little thing because it's a different design pedal than I'm used to having in vehicles. That's probably completely normal, but that's new to me. Has full manual mode. Can fully shift the gears. Of course, it has fail-safes. It won't let you shift higher than the car can handle. And it does auto downshift. You have full control of when it shifts, but there are fail-safes so that you can't over-rev. I find it very useful in the snow in general, even like through all gears. I just find it more useful to have that extra bit of control. And yeah, it feels nice. This is very simple. It has a great feel to it. The e-brake. I love this kind of e-brake, and you get that satisfying. Love that noise. And yeah. Turning. Very, very simple. Very good turning radius. I have no issues flipping a U-turn on pretty narrow roads. Acceleration, you have to punch it for it to really want to go, but it can really go. So, I mean, it can handle a Pittsburgh merge from a stop, so that's not bad. The suspension's pretty middle of the road. It's not floaty, but it's not stiff. You feel most bumps, but it doesn't feel like you have sport suspension like my old roommate's Sentra SER Spec V did. Where you felt every little bump in the car kind of rocked with it. Here, at least the suspension has give. It has a relatively smooth ride, but you're going to feel the bumps. Road noise, dry conditions, you don't really get much at all. When it's rainy, it can be pretty loud, and once you have those back seats down, all bets are off because the trunk has very minimal soundproofing, And road noise is just very loud with the back seats down, which is one of my few complaints. It stops smooth. Haven't needed to brake hard much, but when I have, it stops on a dime. And that leads me into safety. This got a 5-star on the crash test ratings. And it just feels safe and sturdy. Everything that needs to feel sturdy feels sturdy. So, like, it's amazing how cheap cars have come such a long way, where this car was cheap, but that doesn't mean that it was cheap materialistically. It means it was cheap because they found cheaper ways to make things sturdy and safe. And to cheap out where they can, but not cheap out everywhere. I trust this car. And I trust that I'm going to be safer in this car than I will be in, especially my old Pilot, but in a lot of other cars in this market. I feel like I'm very safe. The lights inside and out are adequately bright. Little feature I like. Let me turn the car back off. I don't need it off. Oh, I can show you the pedal thing. So, that's not flooring it. You could hear when I go. It has that little extra click. Anyway, just thought about that. Inside and out, the lights are adequately bright. I switched the headlights out for some brighter ones because they put cheap bulbs in it before they sold it to me. I put Sylvania Ultra Stars, I believe. Whatever the brightest non-LEDs I can put in this car are. Halogens, not non-LEDs. And, you know, it's night and day compared to my Pilot, and I can see really well overall. And this isn't me knocking my Pilot. My Pilot's an 18-year-old car, so it's going to obviously have issues. My only complaints are that, as you can see, you now know what I look like if you didn't already, even though most people kind of do at this point. It's not like I hide it, and some upcoming videos have me pretty fucking clearly. But it's, needless to say, I can get blinded pretty easy by people's headlights, so that can be a problem, especially if I got a truck or a big SUV behind me. I'm getting blinded by them, and that's just... I never really used this feature of the flip down the mirror, but I absolutely use it in this car. The horn, a little bit wimpy. I want to put hellas on this thing just because I feel like it needs a punch. The Pilot, I love the horns on that thing. They were so loud. They got your attention. They had multiple tones. Loved them. This seems like it doesn't have so much low end on it. And I kind of wish it did. But, hey. The backup camera quality I kind of touched on. It's not the greatest, but it gets the job done. The display cluster brightness. This is another thing. So, I guess I need the car and accessory at least. So, when I have the headlights on, and I dim the screen, if I turn the headlights off, it undims. If I go like I'm going to redim it, in theory that should have, or undim it, that should have undone it. Sorry, my music's auto-playing. In theory, that should have undimmed it, and it did not. You have to have the lights on. It does work on the running lights, but you have to have those on, and that does annoy me. And especially, at least in my old dash cam, in the camera reflection, even when it was dim, you could see the reflection of the screen. Here, you kind of see it in the corner, but this new Van True, I'll do a recording on it eventually. It's a lot better for that. And yeah, that pretty much covers the driving bit of things. I believe I just have a couple more little things to touch on, and then we'll be wrapping this guy up. All right, and now just to go over, so some of the little things that I like that aren't necessarily, actually none of these are objective, and reasons that this car is good or bad, but these are just things that I like about it. Obviously, the washer nozzles under the hood, I mentioned, just because I don't like being able to see them, and I don't like them in the wipers, because in my experience with work vehicles we have that are like that, they are a pain in the ass. Although I would like them as the wipers get older, but that just tells you it's time to replace the wipers, so hey. Having a washer fluid monitor, love it. When I open and close the doors, the way the lights, I don't know if it's going to capture this, see the way that they naturally brighten and then will naturally dim? See, it's slowly dimming as it goes. that it sits at this ambient light for a bit and then it'll dim. I'm not going to sit there with the camera on that. But, point being, I like that. That's just like a little touch that I liked. Auto running lights, just something I wish my old car had. I'm glad this one does. Amber turn signals on the rear of the car is such a big thing for me for no discernible reason. Europeans got one right on this. I hate the dual brake light turn signal lights that make things slightly cheaper but look fucking stupid. Obviously the little visor extensions, the fact that it's like that instead of having to slide this guy out, I don't like those because that's just an easier fail point for me. The rearview mirror, obviously being sleek, not bulky at all, very easy to adjust and move out of the way. It doesn't feel tight. And obviously the car in general is just compact. I've been able to park in some spots in this thing that my Pilot never could, and my Pilot's not that big, relatively speaking. Things I wish I had. I wish the display was a touchscreen, and CarPlay would be nice, but I don't really need it. Not when I have a phone mount here that I can have my GPS. Heated mirrors, I don't have, that my Pilot had. Heated seats, same thing, but I have cloth seats, so that's kind of to be expected. I would like having the dimmable rearview mirror that some of the newer cars have, but that's, you know, can't complain. I wish I had fully auto headlights. I do not. Same with wipers. Sunroof is just a personal preference. My Pilot had one. I kind of wish I had one. I wish this had LED lights, but at this time, the base models did not have LEDs. I don't know if any of them actually did. Roof racks and a tow hitch for like little hitch mounted cargo racks, and and for a roof rack, like I just think roof racks look nice on sedans. I don't know why. That's just a look I like, and I like being able to put like one of those travel hard cases on the roof. And I wish I had a manual, but I had to go with what I had to go with, and I have wrist issues, so it's not smart to rely on a manual until I know what I can do with that. So my overall opinion on this car is that it's just perfect for what I need. It gets the job done, it's reliable, it's cheap to operate, cheap to fill up. All complaints I have are minor, relatively speaking. I don't have any major complaints about how this thing drives. You'll get there safely and reasonably. It'll handle almost any conditions, although I have struggled in snow a little bit. But that's to be expected, front-wheel drive, and I have all seasons on it, so that's not necessarily a knock on the car. It handles pretty much most things you throw at it, to be honest with you. Anything a normal person's going to throw at it. It's quick and nimble when it needs to be, but it still feels like, it doesn't feel like you are struggling when you get it up at high speed. And when you're driving slow, it doesn't feel like it wants to drive fast. It feels like it's comfortable at any speed. Overall, I would recommend it, and I would probably replace this with another one once this one goes. I was never a Mazda guy, but I think that this car's changed that for me. So, that being said, thanks for listening to me ramble on about this car. Hopefully this helps you inform your decision if this is some kind of car you're looking at, and especially if you're buying online and you can't quite take it for a test drive, it's a great way to find out some info. So, hopefully this helps you out. I'll see you guys in the next video.